The Bioficers are here and they've declared war on humanity. In this video, we're going to have a look at the Bioficer light ships, and I shall give you my thoughts on how to get the best out of these bizarre alien craft. You can see on the front of the box that we get 6 models in this set, and if I flip it over, there are some of the different variants. Now I shall discuss all of these along with their strengths and weaknesses once I've unboxed the models themselves. So here's the one sprue that we get inside the box. If you've seen any of the other recent plastic kits, you'll be familiar with how well TT Combat has done in terms of packing lots of material onto the sprue, and that's very much the case here. So if I just put the bases to one side and lift this up towards the camera, once again you should be able to see we've got some really crisp detailing here. These are lovely ships, or rather at this point lovely parts. Now it's interesting, a number of the panels here are already in place, which is a bit different from the medium ships, where you tend to have a lot of freedom in terms of where you place those. Okay, that looks great. If you give me a minute, I shall put these together. Here are the assembled ships. They took me about 15 minutes or so to put together, really easy. In fact, 3 of the vessels were complete. You just clip them off the sprue. The Bioficer ships are very much those types of models that look a lot nicer when you see them up close. Holding them in your hand, you realise just how beautiful they are, whereas seeing photographs of them, they tend to look a little bit odd. Now, let's have a little bit of a closer look at these ships. The Bioficer fleet has a number of distinct strengths and weaknesses, and we can see those in play with these light ships. Bioficer craft tend to have a good scan range, at least 8 inches, and a low signature, no higher than 3 and sometimes as low as 1. That's going to give them first strike capabilities against most enemy ships, including the Shaltari in most cases. And there's nothing better than getting the drop on those pesky alien pirates. A Bioficer player has to make those attacks count though, as they have so many front or even front narrow facing weapons. Having said that, there are a good number of light ships that have firing arcs outside the front and front narrow, which I think is going to make them really important for developing a balanced list. The Vertex is a fantastic corvette with good speed, solid weapons for its size, and the sort of scan signature ratio that I was just describing. At only 20 points a model and with 4 hull each, I can imagine these zipping across the battlefield, snapping off shots. Or you could keep them on your side of the battlefield, have them drop down into orbit, and then they can keep an eye out for any enemy dropships that try and sneak down your flanks and drop off troops. The Logic is a strange looking ship, even for the Biovisors. To me, it resembles a space gnat. It's nippy as hell with 16 inches of thrust, and the combination of bombardment weapons and the ability to launch drop pods is great. Admittedly, you can only use one or the other each round, but even so, given the fact that a Logic will cost you just 20 points, we can even overlook the fact that they're basically made of tinfoil. They can swarm like real gnats and get the job done. The Mantle is an interesting ship. It's very slow with just 4 inches of thrust, and because it's a monitor, it can't take the max thrust order either. So whatever you're going to do with it in a game, you'll probably have to do it on your side of the board. There's also a jump up in cost to 65 points. However, and there are several howevers, the Mantle has 12 inches scan. It also has some very solid saves, and its gravitic pulverizer causes core damage. So backup saves only against the weapon that rolls 6 attack dice. On top of all this, the pulverizer has arrest 2, reducing the target's movement by 2 inches, and an alt fire mode that lets you bombard cities. Like I said, lots of howevers. A ship like this, I think, will just be fun to play. The Monarch shares the same stat line, but swaps the Pulverizer for a so-so 360-degree decon blast and launch 2 capability. Now, Bioficer bombers are fast and roll 3 attack dice hitting on 4s. Their fighters are also pretty nippy, but can only provide 1 kinetic save reroll if you use them defensively. Given the number of front-facing weapons in the Bioficer fleet as a whole, then having access to a few fighters that can finish off ships that have dodged outside your arcs of fire sounds like a great idea to me. The Monarch costs 105 points and has just 4 hull. That's a little bit flimsy for my liking, but then carrier ships don't come cheap. The Matrix is the final variation on this chassis, which simply switches its fighter and bomber load for torpedoes. Bioficer torpedoes are fast with 9 inches of movement and have an excellent 2+ lock, but they can never inflict more than 2 points of damage. What they can do, however, is to deposit battalions onto enemy ships, space stations, and the like. As battalions persist in causing core damage until they're dealt with, this attack reminds me of a sort of Melf's acid arrow from D&D. The initial damage is fairly mediocre, but it can persist for several rounds. The Torrent resembles a flying minigun, and on a weapons free order, that's exactly what it becomes. Fusillade 4 means that you'll be rolling 10 dice with burn through 1. Any time that you're rolling more dice than you can comfortably hold in one hand, life is good. And I know there's no noise in space, but I'm sure I'll be making sound effects when I let rip with this weapon, whether it's shredding ships or flambeing fighters and bombers. I like the Torrent. The Tyne, another distinctive looking Bioficer ship, swaps the scythe cluster for a gravitic stave. This causes core damage, which could make it very useful against well-shielded ships. The last of this trio is the Tally, a highly specialised ship with the ability to change the fire arcs of another vessel within 8 inches. Shadowing a powerful ship like a Stature or a Catastrophe, something like this could be great. A Tally is 85 points though, and for a ship that can't do a lot on its own, that's quite a big investment. Having said that, it's likely that the Bioficers will get a battleship or a dreadnought in the future that will really benefit from this ability. The last 2 options in the box are the Domain and the Diode, and they both give me exactly what I want from a destroyer, which is big, stonking guns. The chassis that the 2 share is not fast, but it's tough enough and has, you guessed it, good scan and low signature. The Domain's decon cannon suffers from being front narrow, but line it up and 7 dice hitting on 3s is very nice. The Diode bisector is awesome, particularly against big ships. It's an energy weapon, so it doesn't have to worry about Aegis, and has a really good chance of triggering Penetrator anyway, which means that it inflicts core damage. At 75 points, diodes are cheap enough that you can run them together in groups, and I absolutely love these ships. It's one of those great moments in gaming where the mechanics and the fluff, in this case the idea of slicing through another ship, marry together perfectly to give you something awesome. This is such a good ship. The choice of ships in this set is great, and there's enough vessels that I'd like to make that as soon as I finish painting this first lot, I'm pretty sure I'll be buying another box. I hope you've enjoyed the video and found it useful. If so, please consider hitting the like or subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon, and until then, keep rolling.